also have access to a PDF of this webinar downloadable from the handout section of your dashboard. Today's webinar is Stand and Deliver, Communications and Presentation Skills, and will be presented by Rick Muller, professional writer, trainer, communications consultant, and producer. Rick Muller has decades of experience at the most senior level of all aspects of communications. A former journalist and radio television broadcaster, Rick has provided strategic communications, marketing, and media consulting services for some of Canada's most senior business leaders and politicians, and has been conducting the Stand and Deliver Communications and Presentation Skills Workshop for business professionals at every level for more than a decade. Engaging, entertaining, interactive, with honest feedback and insights and a touch of humor, the full half-day workshop has been a proven success in providing participants with confidence, clarity, energy, enthusiasm, and a positive personal presence to maximize the opportunities every business presentation represents. Now, without further ado, I'll hand it over to Rick to start.
Thank you, Rublin. Clearly, I can't keep a job with all those responsibilities I've been given. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are across our great dominion via the interweb. I'm Rick Muller, and welcome to today's webinar, Stand and Deliver. This is an hour presentation. I'll have 40 minutes to present to you, and then we're going to allow 15 to 20 minutes at the end for your questions. So what we are doing today is giving you a condensed version of the half-day workshop, Stand and Deliver, which teaches communications and presentation skills. Because sales prospecting is tough enough. When you need to get in the room, when you finally get in the room, you want to make the best possible impression and you'll be able to close the deal. Now for me, I was in radio and television, so I like to chat. It's not a big deal. But for some, it's the biggest deal in the world. Speaking in front of public is a huge fear, more than death for some people. And I've died many times. But what we needed to do was, and about 10 years ago, when I was in the corporate field, I attended many, many business presentations. And some of them were really bad. And you knew this in about 30 seconds. You go, oh, this guy doesn't want to be here. This is a canned presentation. He didn't really prepare. He doesn't like speaking in front of people. This isn't tailored to me or my company. And you know that really, or they just read the slides to me. They have a PowerPoint presentation and they're reading the slides. If you're just there to read slides, why am I here at the Whitby Holiday Inn at 8 o'clock? Send me your presentation in advance and I'll just read your presentation. So today, the whole purpose behind this condensed version is to demonstrate to you the value of the full workshop, but mostly impress upon you the importance of communication skills in making a business presentation. The workshop is geared to ideally 4 to 5 participants at a time. It runs a half day. It is highly interactive with many activity sessions. And an option we have is to bring in a cameraman and film those activity sessions, which is tremendous for downstream learning and value. And you can keep looking at it and send it to you via Dropbox the next day, your individual activity sessions. So let's get underway with the condensed version of the workshop. I'll try to, there we are. So where we're headed in the workshop, we ask them, where are you now? Where do you want to be? We talk about managing that stress. We talk about building the outline and maybe adding some substance to your presentation. And then we get into the whole stand and deliver thing, which is projecting a positive personal style and presence, engaging your audience. Let's show them you want to be there. Vocal strength and clarity. It's important to be heard and articulate. And then using visual support. How best to do that. So we need a baseline of all the participants who show up for the workshop. And again, it's 4 to 5 participants. It can be done in any boardroom. And it's geared to those who make business presentations in any environment, sitting at a table, standing in a boardroom, in front of a big crowd. But I need to know how they present. So I asked them to bring in a USB key, and we show that of a current presentation they have, or a current business pitch they have. And they get up and they show me this pitch. So I need that baseline. How do these people present? How are their communication skills? Where do they need improvement? We film that, which is great. And we do that for all, and it's about 5 minutes each. After about 5 minutes, I can sort of figure out where they are in a presentation way, where they are in their communication skills, and their interpersonal skills. So we do that, and it's very valuable going forward in the workshop. So I asked them, where are you now? I want to know 3 characteristics. What do they think of their personal style when presenting? Where do they want to be? How would you like to present? People say more confidence, more energy, more enthusiasm. And then speaking of those E words, how many E words do you think of to characterize an excellent presenter? So when you think, it's funny, E words, what are E words? Well, I said energy, enthusiasm. There's entertaining. Why not be entertaining? Be effective, get the point across. Be engaging. Again, you want to be there. Be an expert, because that's why you're there presenting. Be somewhat exciting. Be expressive. Be exhilarating. Have some enthusiasm and spirit. And most importantly, show them that you're eager to communicate. That's really important. A lot of people just stand there with a bad face, and you know they don't really want to be there. Then we address managing stress. What are the reasons you think you feel nervous when you're presenting in a business case, a sales pitch, a sales call? What do you do in real life when you feel stress and anxiety? Think, what do you do in real life? Well, there's stats for everything, as you know. So here's the stress busters, divided between women and men, which I found somewhat interesting. Listen to music and read is number 1. Exercise, very close, 65 to 63%. Watch TV, right even at 60%. Have a hobby, very even, 54 to 56%. Eat, women 43%, men 31%. Shop, 43%. Relaxation technique, 28% for women. Drink alcohol, 15% for women. There are some other figures there, and I'll just go to my printed copy. Shopping, 43% for women, 16% for men. There you go. Should be 16%. Relaxation technique, 28 to 21. Drink alcohol. So men drink and women shop. That's how they manage their stress. I'll just click forward. There we go. So immediately before you make a presentation, and I really can't emphasize this enough, you need to breathe fully and deeply to manage your stress, concentrate on some positive, calming images, do some voice warm-ups, waggle your jaw, walk, move, have some water, keep your mouth very, very moist. One thing that I really want to emphasize on the vocal warm-ups, if you're making an 8 a.m. presentation or a speech or a business call, you want your voice to be in midday form. You want to be, for your voice, like it's noon. For some people, by 8 o'clock in the morning, the only words they've said is grande bold, please. You can't be like that. You need to be in midday form. Enthusiasm, vocal clarity, strength, tone. Your jaw's got to be working. You're there to talk, not perform. And if you're nervous, always remember, you're never as nervous as you may feel. It never really shows that much, unless you're waffling around with papers. Make sure the situation is comfortable for you and your audience. Give yourself some room to move, walk around. Make sure you can keep eye contact very clearly. There's a reason there's windows behind me. You don't want to ever have to look into the windows. You don't know if it's a sunny day and there's going to be too bright, you can't see them clearly. Reduce distractions if you can, and acknowledge the distractions if there is. I mean, I presented one day in a bank boardroom. In the next office, they were tearing up drywall all day. So you got to roll with it. But make sure the situation is comfortable for you. If I'm presenting at the Westin Hotel in Winnipeg at 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm in the night before, and I go down to that ballroom, and I make myself very, very familiar with the ballroom. So it's not a foreign environment. So when you show up the next morning, you're comfortable in your environment. Some yays and nays. So you speak directly to a friendly, welcoming, engaging member of the audience. You can do that. There are those types, and they're in rapt attention looking at you. They're not going to take their eyes off of you. These people sit in the front seat of cabs. You know the type of people. They're very eager beavers. So that's great. You can always do that. And ease your tension. Interact with your listeners. Ask where they're from. Ask a little question about their personal lives. Oh, are you born in here? Or whatever. Innocent questions. Stand-ups do it very well. Never say I'm not the expert. And I've heard people say that. And that always struck me as sort of weird. And if you're nervous, don't please ever announce it. Well, I'm not really used to public speaking, so I'm very, very nervous. You know you're going to get a bad presentation if somebody says that to you right off the top. Be confident. Some key tips. In building your outline, let's try to go back and say, okay, how do I put together an outline? Well, it's got to be an audience-driven outline. So just like in comedy, the first rule is to know your audience. Assess the makeup of the company you're doing a sales call to. What characteristics might affect the shape of your presentation? What kind of presentation will they be expecting? And establish the takeaway message. Yes, you want to close the deal. Yes, you want to demonstrate how smart you are and how great your product or service is. But you want your audience to conclude that. And sometimes some people forget that. And if you're presenting in a boardroom, I would always say, please get up and stand. I don't like anyone sitting. It's bad for your energy, it's bad for your vocal tone and clarity and your strength and your enthusiasm. You want to be standing in a boardroom making your presentation. And so if you're doing that and you have some paper there, you can write down the key takeaway message, and maybe it's just 3 words, close the deal, or something about your service, something about your presentation. But if you write it down on each piece of paper that no one else is seeing, then you can keep referring to it, and you never forget the takeaway message as you move through your presentation. So you're never walking out of there going, oh, I wanted to say that. No, you see it all the time, and you're always referring to it. Before you write your presentation, and again, this is for an audience-driven presentation, anticipate the questions and issues which are of greatest concern to your audience, the company you're presenting to. List any topics your audience would be unaware of, and organize the questions, the issues, and the topics into 3 key segments. The audience or the company you're presenting to arrives with the hope that you know something that they do not. Why else would they be there? Your job is to deliver that to them. Have any of you heard of the rule of 3? The rule of 3 is how our brains work. And when you look at this, you go, we do think in 3s. Air, water, and fire. Height, width, and depth. Positive, negative, and 0. 3 healthy meals a day. There was a stat this morning that said that 87% of Canadians do not have 3 meals a day. And lunch, for you right now, some of you, is the #1 eliminated meal. found that interesting. There's 3 levels of government. 3 notes make a chord of music. There's gold, silver, and bronze. Baseball's based on 3 with the bases and the outs and the strikes and the fields. Most jokes are the 3 scenarios, the rabbi, minister, and priest. In fact, Google lists 275,000 matches for the rules of 3. And let's face it, there were only 3 Beatles. You know, Ringo, thanks for coming. So if our brains, for some reason, operate in 3s, what a weird chemistry thing is this, but it's, when you look at the stats, it's pretty convincing. If we think in 3s, why not deliver and present your presentation and design it in 3s so it's easily received? Because that's the way, whether we know it or not, whether we realize it or not, this is the way we think. So why not make it easy for the person hearing your presentation or your pitch and do it like that? So given that, the rule of 3 provides you with a simple, clear structure in building your outline for any pitch, for any presentation. So you've got your subject, and then you've got a segment, a segment, a segment, and through 3 segments, you've got 3 points. So all of a sudden, you've easily come up in seconds with, oh, a lot of people, you know, they enter the workforce, and they say, oh, Jenkins, you got to do a presentation this Thursday. Well, Jenkins has never been formally trained in doing a presentation. So this is one of the key advantages of Stand and Deliver the workshop, is to give people the confidence and the tools and the rules by which it's easy to make any presentation. So again, if we think in 3s, which the rule of 3 clearly states, then why not deliver your presentation and design it in 3s so it's easily received? That's the outline, but let's try to add some substance to your presentation. Let's try to make it different. Let's try to make it interesting and somewhat exciting. How do we do that? People love facts and statistics. They just love them. Since USA Today came out in around 1982, people love those little facts and stats. Examples and explanations. That's great for adding some substance. Quotations, memorable phrases. People like that. And stories. Every presentation should tell a story of some sort, and hopefully some dialogue in that story to make a difference. The idea is that you're not there standing in a boardroom, standing in a lecture hall, standing in front of a person, giving them a dry recital of facts. That's going to put them to sleep pretty quickly. Plus, when you add some substance like this, facts and stats and memorable phrases and quotes, maybe a little humor, people don't know what's next. It keeps them engaged in you and the presentation. So let's talk about facts and stats. They're interesting only if put in context. Never assume they speak for themselves. Always assume the audience is asking, why is this important? Why is he talking about that? And if you use some startling numbers, make them as visual as possible so the audience can sort of see them. And give the audience a memorable stat. You must make it comparable and visual. I gave you a stat about the 3 meals of the day that was just released this morning. But there are others. These are some of the stats you can easily put into any presentation, and they're somewhat a little relevant, and some people walk away thinking, wow, I learned something today. They go home and say, honey, did you know on the time of today's presentation more than 5,000 babies have been born in India? That's sort of fun. 25% of India's population with the highest IQ is greater than the entire population of the US. Therefore, India has more honors kids than America has kids. The top 10 jobs just 4 years ago didn't exist 10 years ago. 1 billion users. Facebook is the world's 3rd largest country, but it is interesting that Facebook's use, the way it's being used, is decreasing. As of February 10th, 3 years ago, Apple was worth $700 billion. It's now over $1 trillion. I believe Microsoft is also over $1 trillion. Radio took 38 years to reach 50 million consumers. 38 years. Facebook took 2 years. 1 week of the New York Times contains more information than a person living in the 18th century would learn in their lifetime. That's staggering. 1 week of today's New York Times. And the rate of growth of all human knowledge doubled between 2008 and 2014. I can only assume in the next 4 or 6 years, it's going to double again. Sometimes these little stats adding into your presentation add some style, some substance. Hey, I didn't know that. And that's some of the times the takeaway a lot of people have. Hey, I met this really good guy and he presented about his company and about his services and his products. But did you know these are the things sometimes which are repeated, and they can add a little spice and sizzle to your presentation. Examples and explanations. So what makes a good example? Well, it's got to be relevant. It should be specific. It's great if you can personalize it. So an example and explanation. Quotes and memorable phrases. Draw quotes from current and popular sources. People like to see that you're a normal human being and you're paying attention to the world. And you go, as Beyonce said the other day, blah, blah, blah. Why not? Use admired historical figures. Churchill's great for that. Vince Lombardi, great. A clever twist of phrase, that's always fun. And using quotes gives more credibility to your ideas. Sometimes they back up your ideas. And if it comes from a historical or popular figure, even better. And use, of course, quotes pertaining to your topic. So this presentation is about communications. So here's some quotes about communications pertaining to the topic of today's presentation. Sometimes when you try to communicate too many times, you wind up communicating nothing. A good presentation is like a shark. If it stops moving forward, it dies. A speech is like a symphony. It can have 3 movements, but it must have 1 dominant melody, said Mark Twain. And of course, the great scholar of our time, Homer Simpson. The problem with today's world is communication. There's too much communication. Thank you, Homer. But you can add little things about your product, your company, your service. I'm sure you can find them. Some clever twists of phrase to emphasize your point on the keyboard of life. Always keep 1 finger on the escape key. Business contracts are like roses. They last while they last. Some people burn their bridges behind them. Some people burn their bridges ahead of them. We're burning our bridge while we stand on it. If you Google change, quotes, sayings, and mottos come up. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Internet Movie Database. imdb.com. It's fantastic for quotes, and all of a sudden humanizes you, makes you relevant and a real person to your audience. I mean, you can find out some great quotes from great movies. We're going to need a bigger boat. I'll have what she's having from When Harry Met Sally. Some of these you drop in sometimes during your presentation, and your audience might think, oh yeah, I love that movie. He's like me. He likes that movie. So you can make it very specific to your presentation. Let's talk a little bit about stories. We make stories come alive. We need to do that by being clear about the point being illustrated, make it personal and specific. You know, today I was in the elevator coming up here and I ran into John Walsh and he said blah, blah, blah. Put some dialogue and conversations into your story. You don't even have to put this on your PowerPoint. It's just something you have in the back of your brain. You go, I'm going to drop that story in right here in the presentation. And it's a little sidetracky, but again, it shows that you don't know where this presentation, your audience doesn't know where this presentation is going. They're going to be quite attentive in listening to it. And keep it simple, stupid. Tighten the writing down to the very essence of your message. You know, back in 1969, NASA knew that they were going to land a man on the moon, probably sometime that summer. So somebody at NASA went to somebody, we'll call him Jenkins, and said, Jenkins, you know, we're going to land a man on the moon. We're going to leave behind on the LEM, the lunar module, a plaque, and it's going to be about this big. You've got to write the words for that. And Jenkins, it's going to be there forever. So Jenkins goes, So there it is. There's what he came up with. Here, men from the planet Earth first set foot upon the moon, July 1969 AD. We came in peace for all mankind. Nice job, Jenkins. 22 words, and he nailed it. Where are you from? Who are we? We're men. Where are we from? Planet Earth. What did we do? We've set foot upon the moon. When did we do it? July 69. Why did we do it? We came in peace for all mankind. Fantastic job, Jenkins. Congratulations. And I can't wait for, I think it's next week, when First Man premieres, the new movie about Neil Armstrong. 10 Commandments, 166 words. Gettysburg Address, 272 words. If you put some thought into it, you can simplify your message by keeping it simple. Use this mantra in everyday communications. Emails really should be postcards, not letters. There's somebody that I deal with on a daily basis. When I see their name on my inbox, I dread opening the email because I'm going to have a 17-paragraph email to read instead of just a succinct little postcard. Thank you very much. It's like the people who leave the long-winded voicemail after they say, oh, can you call me? And then when you call them, they go through the entire long-winded voicemail again. So it's busy. We're all busy. Time is of the essence and very, very precious, especially during the business day. Keep your emails and your writing very succinct. Keep it simple, and you get your point across. Jenkins did at NASA. 10 Commandments, not too bad. Gettysburg Address, not too shabby. But these huge, confusing things are condensed down into everyday communications, which is to keep it simple. And you get to the point a lot faster. So here's our second activity session in the workshop. We've had our first, which is you give me a current presentation that you're doing, and I can baseline your communication skills and your presentation ability. Now, since we've talked about building an outline, the rule of 3, adding some style, some substance to the presentation, now I say, okay, participants, I need you to prepare a 5-minute presentation. And this presentation can be about something you do really well. Use 3 different examples, 3 different bullet points, remember the rule of 3, and relay some conversation as part of the story. And this is a really fun team building exercise because you can't believe what some people do really well. There's the big beefy guy and he's into Russian ballet. There's the smaller woman and she's a scratch golfer. There's somebody over there who's an excellent baker. There's somebody over there who plays tennis. There's somebody over there who plays soccer. There's somebody over there. Sometimes when people come back in after this and they present what they do really well, the mouths around the table drop and they go, I didn't know that. So it's a great team building exercise as well. So I give them about 10 minutes to do that during a break. It's a wellness break or whatever you want, but they can easily write it because they know now how to write a presentation. And this demonstrates that firsthand. So they all say to me, wow, that was easy. I can now present and do any presentation anywhere. I can build it easily with the rule of 3, adding some substance, some style, and some personality, a little bit of buzz, and put some conversation into the presentation. So that's a great tip, and they've seen it firsthand because the subject is very simple for them. They know something, they do something very well, and this is how we're going to present to it, and you see how easy it is to do a presentation. and to communicate with confidence and clarity. So we film this as well. Each individual gets up and gives their presentation about what they do very well. We film that as well. This is a fun exercise, and sometimes just so funny and so shocking. So now we turn to, in the workshop, standing, delivering, projecting a positive personal presence. We talk about the face. We talk about eye contact. We talk about posture and movement. We talk about gestures, and we talk about the voice. What is required is the audience perception that you are competent and you are likable. Sometimes on television, and we don't know why, we're flipping around television and we go, I don't like him. Oh, I like her. But you're not even hearing them. You don't even know what they're talking about. Again, it's the perception that they're likable and again, competent. So this is a very key part of the presentation, the workshop, in that it increases people's confidence. It shows them some shortcomings and things they have to work on, room for improvement. So the face, that's where we'll start. A closed face makes you look angry. A neutral face makes you look disinterested. An open face makes you look engaging and likable. I actually want to be here. I'm happy to have this opportunity and I'm eager to communicate with you. That's one of the reasons people flip around the television is, boy, that guy looks angry. You want to look likable, you want to look like you're engaging and you're happy to be there. That's the open face. Eye contact. Look the audience in the eyes. Seek out that individual again, the person who's really eager. Go back to them occasionally if you feel, that maybe some people aren't looking at you or looking at their phones, which you should never do. Move from person to person around the room in close proximity. Establish some rapport and connect with your audience. Eye contact projects some confidence, but that you are engaging your audience, but you never stare down any individual, because that makes people feel really uncomfortable, especially if it's a small group. So stop doing that. So avoid staring down individuals. Just look at everybody. Make sure they're looking at you. Keep them engaged. Keep them connected with you. Eye contact is key. Posture and movement. This really gives off some signals. Body language gives off a lot of signals. Stand relaxed and poised shows you're in sort of command. Again, even if you're presenting in a boardroom, even if it's to 5 people across the table, I personally will always stand to make a presentation. It shows you're in command. You can move around a little bit more. You're not stilted. It's better for voice, tone, clarity, breathing. And position yourself at a slight 1/8 angle. You don't want to be confrontational and straightforward to people. Be a little open. Balance yourself back, weight back, but be open to people. And avoid the constant moving or pacing. People hate that. Don't rock or sway too much. And of course, don't get too close to people and invade their personal space. That's just creepy. Gestures should be genuine and appropriate. It's okay to talk with your hands. You can emphasize a point as loudly as words. Keep your hands in front of you, but out of the triangle. The triangle is your shoulders up to the top of your head. That's the triangle. Some people talk like this, and they put their hands in front of their face, and it's so distracting that I'm not even listening to what they're saying. This is how some people talk. Don't do that. Keep your hands down here. It's okay to emphasize. Broaden your gestures for the larger audiences, the bigger rooms. Don't have the keys or change in your pocket. When I was in grade 9 and I was getting 13% in mathematics, thank you, I brought it up to a 26 at summer school. Thank you very much. Very few people double their marks. I did. My father had a problem with that, though. I never liked math, clearly, but mostly I never liked being pointed at, because it's an accusatory. No one likes to be pointed at. So if you get a question, somebody raises their hands, open palm, a gesture. Yes, go ahead. Thank you. There's a big difference between pointing and an open palm. It's a small thing, but it's a big thing. Now the voice. Of course, we know to speak to the back of the room. Doesn't matter how big the room is, you want everybody to hear you. And breathing more fully creates a stronger voice. It reduces tension, gives you more energy. Speak in a conversational style. It's okay. Accentuate the positive. If I was to say something very slowly, I think you would know that that's a key part of the presentation. So if you need to emphasize a point, just speak slowly and articulate those words. Avoid the mumbling, the monotone range, shows disinterest, speaking too quickly, or if you're in a big presentation in a big room and somebody has the nerve in front of their peers to put up their hand and ask a question, don't say no, don't say yes, always start to engage them. Don't be disrespectful or dismissive with one-word answers. And I don't think that's how you close deals anyway. How to articulate. Why don't you each in your offices start to say these things? Move your mouth, move your jaw. Say these. Inch words, inching. The 223 train tore through the tunnel. 3 free throws. Toy boat. Santa's Seeks. Stocking stuffers. Fat, fast frying fogs. And of course, Ron Burgundy from the Anchor's favorite, unique New York. This is how to articulate. Get your mouth moving. Don't mumble. Don't be a monotone. Get your jaw and your mouth moving. And again, if it's an 8 a.m. presentation, you're up really early because you're going to be in midday form. To engage your audience is a big part of a positive personal presence. Show them you want to be there. Show them they're going to learn something. Show them some respect. Show them that you're interested in them. That's key in relating in a sales way. And show them you're listening. Again, you are happy to have this opportunity to engage with them. And the best advice is enjoy yourself. No matter what happens, if you enjoy yourself, you're happy, you're smiling, you're maintaining eye contact, you've got some good energy and enthusiasm, those E words of an excellent presenter, your eagerness to communicate will come through. So we do, but no, are we back? We are back. Great job, Ruben. We've done that, done that. Now, using visual support, we're going to close off the workshop with some specific complaints people have about other people's slides and visual presentations. Of course, there's a survey for everything. So what do you think the complaints are that people have when they look at somebody else's PowerPoint? Of course, it's always somebody else's, right? Well, let's have a look. Top PowerPoint complaints. The speaker read the slides to us, 60%. Text so small I couldn't read it, 51. Full sentences instead of bullets, 48. Slides hard to see because of the color choices, very important. Moving flying text or graphics, overly complex charts and graphs, and that annoying use of sounds. Well, these, don't do that. It's a business presentation. You're trying to close a deal. You're trying to make a sale. So again, the speaker read the slides to us. I want to talk to you a lot about that. I'll do it quickly because I want to allow time for questions. The slides are only guides to your presentation. They're not meant to be a teleprompter. Here's the key takeaway from Stand and Deliver. The key takeaway is that you are the presentation, not your PowerPoint, not your speaker support. You are the presentation. The emphasis should be on you, your likability, your competence, your intelligence, your ability to communicate, your knowledge of the product or the service or the company you are selling. The audience wants you to narrate the contents of the slide, not read them to me. Again, just send me the presentation if you're going to just read it to me. The text so small I couldn't read slides. Use about 40 words max per slide. This is a good slide. This is enough copy on a single slide. Your audience can read the slide while they're still listening to you, and they can read it very quickly. Bullet points, 2 to 3 per slide. And please don't do this. This is the actual US military slide about Afghanistan stability. What I love about this slide, and as bizarre and loopy as this is that when you look down at the working draft, this is version 3. Somebody had version 1 and version 2. Could you imagine how complex those must have been? Keep the text left justified, keep the typeface consistent, tighten the writing, remember, keep it simple. Keep the color schemes consistent. Historical graphs go back about 10 years. If you have to go back 50 years, do it in 10-year chunks. And here's the easiest part of, do I have too much on a slide? Is it too complex? When your presentation is complete, stand 5 feet away from your computer and read it. If you can read it, everyone in the room is going to be able to read it. So now it's your turn. The final activity session of Stand and Deliver half-day workshop is that we take all the learnings that we've had during the few hours we've been together, and one by one, each individual participant gets up and re-delivers their original presentation they brought in this morning and delivered off the top. We film that as well. They can see, feel, touch how they've improved. It's a great learning tool. They can see it and feel it, that yes, this is more comfortable, I know what I'm doing, my learning has gone way up, my professional development has gone way up just in a half day. And when we send them the video of their 3 activity sessions, it's a fantastic learning tool. Like, I did improve. Look at the difference this morning, and by noon hour, look at me, I improved. It's great for confidence. So that is a condensed version of the Stand and Deliver Communications and Presentation Skills Workshop. I thank you for your attention and time. We can open it now to any questions or comments, and we've got about 10 to 15 minutes for those. So Rupen, if there are any questions, please feel free to ask. I want to make sure you got the most out of this time, and it's very valuable time, and I thank you for it.
Thank you, everybody. So the first question we have is, where can we download the slides? The presentation will be emailed to all attendees today, of course. If there are any other questions, please proceed to ask them through the question function of GoToWebinar.
Well, I hope this means that everybody got the most out of this last hour.
We can certainly give it a couple minutes as well.
And I hope you feel it was a valuable use of your time. Again, it's a half-day workshop. This webinar was the condensed version, just to take you through and navigate you through what participants would experience during the workshop.
We've got a question here. Would you recommend moving away from the podium at times?
Absolutely. If you're not married to a podium, I like people to walk around. Now that, of course, means if you're in a huge hall, you've got to have a lav mic on you. But if you're in a small boardroom situation, I think moving around is very nice. It's very natural. It's very relaxed. I don't particularly like the wooden soldier robot look at a podium. But again, you need to do that over time to feel comfortable doing that. So yes, short answer is move away from the podium when you can, and if technically it's allowed. I don't know, the environment. You might be in a big room with a single light on the podium. So again, you don't want to move out of the light, or you don't want to move away from the single mic. So if you're going to want to do that, you should ask the organizers of, say, a presentation or the company you're going to present to, do I have the freedom to wear a mic and move away from the podium?
How would you deal with off-topic questions?
Sorry, say that again.
How would you deal with off-topic questions?
Well, it's easy to get into that, and you say, you know, that is a great question. You always answer with the positive. And just in the interest of time, perhaps you and I can touch base after this presentation or after this speech when we're finished here, and I can go into that a little bit further. But I do want to keep on this particular topic, which is my product, my service, or what I'm selling. But it's a great question, and let's chat afterwards.
People use pointers at times. What's your thought on using them?
It's really lame, because then their presentation is the presentation, and the point I'm trying to make is that you're the presentation. Your intelligence, your competency, your likability is the presentation. Your intelligence is the presentation. Again, the PowerPoint presentation is just a guide, and again, most of them get a hard copy or it's emailed. So I have a problem with people who are just going to turn around, their back to the audience, and point at a slide. And again, you've got to maintain front and center, you've got to maintain eye contact. No one's coming out to see you the back of your head. That's my opinion.
Another question here, you touched on humor. How do I make humor even though I'm not a good joke teller in a presentation?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. You don't need to tell jokes. And I don't think a business presentation and sales call is the time for the rabbi priest walked into a bar. This isn't the time to tell those types of jokes. Humor does play a great role in humanizing you. You can do self-depreciating humor. People see that and they like that. I mean, you can say, boy, I was really, really excited about being here, and I can't wait. And I shared my excitement with my child this morning. She's 12, and she said, Mom, don't try to be clever, smart, or funny. Just be yourself. So people like self-depreciating humor. You can do that.
So this question's been asked a few times today. How do you get the attention of those who are more interested in their phones during a presentation?
Well, it's a lot of times somebody, the MC or the event facilitator, will say, can we please turn off our phones? And hopefully they do that. If somebody is on their phone and married to their phone and married to their screen, forget about it. You could stand up there on a horse and they wouldn't look up. That's how addicted some people are to their screens. So you don't need to really concentrate on them. Again, default to the people who are really paying attention. That increases your confidence. And incidentally, when you're a presenter, the first thing you do, the last thing you do before you present, is turn off your phone. Not vibrate, not anything like this, because people can sometimes hear vibration, the phone vibrating, and that's very dismissive to your audience. Turn off your phone. Hopefully you're engaging enough that people are looking up off their screens.
Just a comment here, could it be distracting to others?
Pardon me?
Could it be distracting to others to tell them to turn off their phone?
It's up there. Again, that's to the facilitator of the meeting, how they want to handle it. I know that in bigger business conferences or presentations, most people do have their phones off. And then, you can see the minute the presentation's over, everyone's pulling out their screen and turning it on.
So we've got a couple minutes for any other questions. If you'd like to include them within the question function, feel free.
And I know, trust me, I know it's It's not pleasant to look at to an audience and see people down at their screens, but some people just can't help it. You take the subway these days, and in your peripheral vision, there might be 10 people, 8 of them are looking down at their screen. So it doesn't matter how great you are, don't take it as a personal offense. Some people are just that addicted to their screens.
Isn't it distracting when someone is paying attention to their phone? You've got a comment?
Yeah, it's very distracting, but you pay no attention to them. All right, if they don't want to be here and learn, then A, why are they here? And B, don't let it get to you. Because a lot of people are like that. But again, go to your strength, the strength of the people that are paying attention.
Perfect. Well, I think that's all for questions.
Thank you so much for your attention and time. I very, very much appreciate it. And thank you, Rupin and the CPSA, for giving us this opportunity to connect and chat. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Rick, of course, for such an informative webinar today, and of course our attendees for taking the time to participate in today's webinar. All members will be emailed a recording of this webinar, just to reiterate. And if you'd like to learn more about attending the full version of Rick's Stand and Deliver workshop, please feel free to email me at salessuccess@cpsa.com. Again, that's salessuccess@cpsa.com. Thank you, everybody.